This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm so excited to be speaking with Abigail Spencer about extended family. How are you, Abigail?
I'm great, Abe. How are you? I'm so excited to be
Good.
talking
Good.
to you too. Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm curious, what sitcoms did you watch growing up?
Oh my gosh, what sitcoms did I not watch growing up is the deeper question. I watched Dick Van Dyke. I watched Mary Tyler Moore. I watched Golden Girls. I watched Designing Women. I watched Cheers. I watched Frasier. I watched Seinfeld. My friends in high school used to call me Elaine, and then it moved into Monica, So I'm a watcher. I'm a fan, and now I get to do it on television, which really is a dream. It's a real dream.
I think that this show reminds me a lot of some of the series that your co-stars were on like 20 years ago when you were doing dramas like
Don't
Rectify,
tell them
etc.
that. They don't like it to say that I was. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really interesting that I'm okay. I'll tell you a story. John Cryer, John Cryer. You know who I'm talking about. Um, the illustrious John Cryer. We were doing the pilot, and we were doing the reverse wedding scene from the pilot. Dancing, and it's and we're just having a blast, a real ball. And Jamie Widows is directing, who also is such a delight and has the best, I mean, just the most gregarious laugh on set. Like, to make Jamie Widows laugh, you really feel like you've won the lottery. So we're kind of like on a moment in between chatting. He just looks at me, goes, "I can't believe this is your first sitcom." He's like, "I can't believe you haven't been doing this your whole career." And I was like, "Well, thank you. Can you say more?" I would like to know more, please, about that. And he was like, "Well, one, he was like, it just feels like you have. So that was very affirming coming from him, and just your scene partner to be enjoying the process, which I was greatly. And then he said, "And also, you're just such a goofball. How have you been just doing drama this whole time?" And I feel like a lot of what my intention has been on the other shows that I've, so luckily gotten to be a part of, is to bring humor, in the nuance and the fabric of a lot of great drama. I think is bringing humor, that dance of humor, into the space. And actually, I think the intention for extended family in particular, but for comedy and sitcom, is how do you bring something that feels more dropped in, grounded, and not dramatic per se, but real. Real, like that. These are real people dealing with a real situation. And I think always holding that, particularly on our show, even though it can be like, you know, as John says, like, we're going for some big laughs. But I think you get the big laugh because it's so rooted in, clearly defined characters and relationships. So that, to me, is part of the challenge and the delight.
Yeah, I like that. I want to flag a quick spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen the full season. Just want to talk about the last episode for a
Oh, yeah,
second.
yeah. Okay, okay. Yeah.
It seems like,
Run
there's
out and
some
see it.
hint
Pause and go see it, and then you can watch this part. Yeah.
that there's a game I think that hits a little bit too close to home for
Yeah.
people who are trying to say, like, we obviously know what we're doing better than this last couple. What do you think the future holds for these characters? Is that just a blip or is it a more serious obstacle?
What I think is so beautiful, and should I say, we call it the pre-Cana episode. You don't want me to say? Do you didn't want to spoil it?
Please,
No, no, no. Oh,
anything.
okay. I was like, what are we doing? Yeah, in our finale, which, by the way, I thought was, when I read it, I was like, holy cow. This whole episode takes place in one room, and it's just the three of us for 5 acts, 4 acts, 4 acts, 4 acts, and another thing. And I thought that was so wildly confident. Like, I felt so honored that Mike O'Malley and Vic Levin and all of our writers felt they trusted us to do that. That's stuff you don't really see until season 5 or 6 of a show, where you see three people just kind of duking it out in one room. Um, and to the kind of the character situation, basically, John Cryer's character, Jim, my ex-husband, we asked him to perform an unofficial pre-Cana for myself and Trey, Donald Faison's character, which is so wild to me. I was like, oh my God. And it made so much sense. It made so much sense for Julie and Jim. That is their relationship. Who knows me better than you? Who knows who's going to be able to see like the pitfalls of this, of that. And kind of what transpires during that conversation is, mature adult people, you still have to talk about everything. There's things that you haven't said and said out loud. And what I loved is it added stakes of like, are Trey and Julia going to be able to work this out? And are they on the same page? And I think the answer is yes. Like what I love about the show is that you can trust that everything's going to be okay, but watching people get to the okayness is part of the fun, and I think what it sets up in the next season is that they're going to be talking, what if Trey and Julia, like what if they try to have a baby? What if they don't? They still have to get married. We still have to see, Jim is going to hopefully go on more dates if Julia doesn't screw it all up, and the kids and how they grow. So the show at the end of the day, even though there's a divorce, like a good divorce, right? Like that's the situation in the nest, the kids are there, so they're all taking turns and being super mature about that. But the show is really about family, the family dynamic. And to me, every single person on the planet can relate to that. And the screwballness is the situation of seeing these three people try and work it out. It has a real like Philadelphia story tete-a-tete to it as well, which I love. I love.
Well, I first saw you in a show that's very much about family, but a much less happy family than this one, which is Rectify, a show that I feel like maybe it's because of the network it was on that it didn't get all this like incredible. I mean, it got all the acclaim, but didn't get all these awards and everything. But that
Yeah.
still sticks with me as just such a searing drama. And it's also interesting that you shared a lot of your scenes with Luke Kirby, who also now is probably well known for, playing Lenny Bruce in Mrs.
Yeah.
Maisel. So that's a funny sort of turn of events.
Well, that's what's interesting is, so Ray McKinnon, who is the creator and writer of that show, he's hilarious. Like he is, and he's known as, I would say, a comedic, he's a character actor, but the rhythm of that show was written as a comedy, and so was Mad Men. And Matt Weiner has that background too, starting on Becker and then going to Sopranos. Like he's an interesting kind of conflict of tone in that show, and also Rectify was as well. And Amantha, my character, held a lot of the comedy. A lot of the comedy of the show was her take and view, and I could feel Ray through Amantha, like his most sense of humor came through her. So yes, a searing drama, but Luke Kirby's hilarious. Like that cast was hilarious. J. Smith Cameron going on to Succession, like, and everybody getting to see her. She's deeply funny, So it is what I love about this, kind of group of cats that I get to hang with is that really, we're artists and actors, and we get to serve different tonal qualities. And at this point in my career, I wanted to just do something totally different that I hadn't done before. And I really wanted to laugh and bring joy. And I feel like we need it, and we need it on the planet. And I wanted to do literally like a good old fashioned multicam sitcom in front of a live studio audience. I don't want it to, what I like about it is that it doesn't feel old fashioned because we're talking about something that's very prescient and current. But I wanted that art form in my life, and I started in the theater, and I'm a musical theater gal, and that's, Donald and John and I we really have that in common. So it's very fun on our sets. No, there's never not singing or dancing or something happening. Like there's like mini shows happening all the time on our set. And to our final episode, that was really fun. I mean, for what a challenge, because that every word of that was constantly changing until we shot, and we shot the entire episode in front of the audience. And as you see there, it is each character has a breadth of language that is very astute and takes twists and turns. It's a language heavy comedy and focused on that. And I mean, I really felt like I'd never been more challenged in my life. Like, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to remember all of this? Like, because we start on a Monday and we're shot out of a cannon until Friday night. It's it's amazing, like to see everyone come together to make this show every week. It's very moving to me too. I feel like it's like the best of our industry and the best of what we get to do.
You- I also, I mean, I've seen you in other stuff, and I feel like I watch a lot of shows that have a likelihood of getting canceled just because there's so much stuff. I would have loved to see a second season of Rebel, which wasn't in the cards.
Yeah.
And Timeless is an interesting one because of the constant threat of cancellation, the actual cancellations, bringing it back. What is it like to be part of a show that just has that cycle and clearly some strong fans?
Well, I will say, I remember this moment with Timeless. We got canceled and then that like sudden renewal. We got canceled on a Wednesday and then renewed on a Saturday. I was asleep for the whole thing, by the way. This was all happening and I'm just snoozing away. like I wonder what my next job will be, and I actually just signed on for a play. I wake up and I have 100 texts, phone calls. Matt Lanter and Malcolm Barrett are like knocking on, where are you? I literally was like, what did I do last night? Like I thought that I had done something that like went awry, and I was like, right, what happened? So, but I had this overwhelming moment like, God, what an honor to be at the center of something that people care this much about. Like I take the responsibility very seriously. And again, like I said, it's just very moving to me that to be at the center-ish, it's a team of something that people just love. Someone's calling. So it's the Timeless folks. Are we coming? Hello, would you like to? Yeah, it's really a joy, and I'm so lucky to get to do what I love to do. And I think I'm kind of re-experiencing it with Suits right now, like something that just emerges. And to your point around Rectify, I think we've had more wind in our sails post when we were on the air. More people found it afterward, and internationally as well. And that's kind of the gift of streaming, is you can make something that really can live on in a different way and take on a whole different life that you could never have expected.
Then you have something like Grey's Anatomy, which was popular,
I mean,
almost from
well,
the start.
I didn't even start on that show till season 14. That's the most hilarious part. It was like, oh my God. Well, yeah, I started season 14. What? And and that too, like and that I get to come back and play. And, that really is Shonda Rhimes and Krista Vernoff, that they thought of me, that they invited me into that universe. And I have a long history with Krista Vernoff. I've done 8 projects with her, and Shonda Rhimes too. I mean, she, after I did an episode of Private Practice, and then she invited me to potentially do another project that didn't end up making to air. So it's a journey, and we all get to create and make stuff together. And I feel so lucky that the people I get to be around are smarter and funnier and trust me enough to say their words.
Well, from the way you talk about all your projects, I can tell that you're a fan of watching things as well as just being part of them. And at Awards Buzz, we love awards, and I'm curious if there's a particular show or performance right now that you think is especially awards worthy.
Well, oh, interesting. I'm trying to think for the next, because, well, what was interesting, speaking of awards, so John and Donald and I were giving out a lot of awards this past season, and they all got crunched into like, 2 weeks because of the strike and everything. So I was like giving out awards. I got to give Grey's Anatomy the People's Choice Award for the show. And but it was when we were at the Critics' Choice in Beef, like we gave Beef the award, and I know Allie a little. I mean, a huge fan of Allie, but I know her a little bit, and Steven and Maria. And I was like, I gotta go watch this. And when I saw it, because I felt like a liar, I was like, congratulations, you're but I was like, I don't really know. So I'm being very honest. I ran and watched it, and I devoured it. I thought it was so interesting. And Larkin Siepels, who's the cinematographer, I actually did Reprisal with. So I know his work, but I just thought like across the board, that what Allie and Steven were doing were like really, really tremendous, really incredible performances. And I would say, I heard myself say this recently, but I think what Naomi Watts is doing on Capote and the Swans, like I would give her an Oscar. I'm like, give her the Oscar. It's so interesting. The whole cast, I thought, I love the opportunity of all these great dames coming together to give these really rich and colorful performances. And I think what Gus Van Sant is doing with that season is No, really, really wonderful and extraordinary. And then, you shoot over to Palm Royale and you see Kristen Wiig and, the wonderful Allison B. Janney and Leslie and all these great gals again coming together to do something super unique and tremendous. And I think Kristen, I really looked, I love everyone's what they're up to, and when they challenge themselves and grow and do something, I feel like I get permission to challenge myself and grow. And that's really why I wanted to do extended family, because and I worked for it, even though I have a long relationship with NBC, a la Timeless and Suits, and even my first series on the air, Angela's Eyes, was an NBC Universal show. I and Lionsgate with Mad Men, they didn't know me for comedy. So I had to work for it, and I'm very grateful for the challenge, because then I can trust myself in that space too, and just to do a little different color and a little different dance, and I feel pretty good about
That's great.
it.
No, that's great. And I'm hoping we'll have some good news soon about season 2 of Extended Family.
Thank you. From your mouth to NBC's ears. Yeah.
Lots of fun talking to you. Thank you so much for your time, Abigail.
Babe, I appreciate it.